And I'm old enough to remember, like, dude, you just don't ask that question. That's just not something that you do. And Robert, going back, you think about when we were at school, we're going to have an old man moment.
Oh, shit.
Trust me, I'm going to get with Robert. At any time during our youth, anybody care what your politics were?
No.
No, we were at a different level. I'm not saying that's right.
Whole different animal back then.
Different level.
Well, and they weren't vilifying people for their beliefs, and this is where, they're destroying. And Joe and I, when we first started this podcast beforehand, we were going to try to get some people on the other side on and have an intelligent debate, and we're like, well, we're going to shit can that right out of the box because we had talked about it, because we're like, can't we get somebody on that we trust that's a liberal, and we could honestly debate an idea. And that's what college campuses are supposed to be about.
Yes.
They used to be, they brought, when I was going to Christopher Newport College in Newport News, they brought in some Sandinistas from El Salvador. That's how they were. And they let them talk. They didn't scream them down. They didn't say, hey, you commie bastards, you can't speak. They didn't say you're communist and all this other stuff. They were on my college campus in Newport News, Virginia. And that can't happen, because now if you're a conservative, you're a terrorist just about.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that, Isabella?
You're entirely right, honestly. I know some schools had debate teams. I know my high school did. And I was too scared to join that because, one, right. I don't really like arguing. If people start yelling at me, I most likely will cry, even if I'm right. But it's a screaming match now. Nobody can have an intelligent conversation. I mean, even just yesterday, my grandmother and my great uncle on my dad's side were, talking politics in the kitchen, and me and my dad are sitting there and his wife's sitting there. And we're just like beyond ourselves because they were screaming and they're even on the same side. They believe very similar things, yet they were still screaming at each other. It just gets very loud.
Well, that's Italian food, right? Anyway, right?
Yeah, but, it's the same thing. Even if, let's say, if I did try to talk about something like this with someone at work, it would become a screaming match, without a doubt in my mind.
No, it's weird. I can go back to, we were at Minchville 100 years ago, and they are one of the few days I was actually in attendance at school. This was a rare day. But they had all the city council people come in because, the seniors, we were all turning 18. And one of the guys that was running was a communist. I mean, he actually said, I'm a communist, right?
Yeah, there used to be one on the ballots almost every time.
Yeah, there was because there was we had a shipyard, and some of the union people who ran were actually communists. And said
they were,
right? And of course, being young and dumb, we had to go talk to the communists because, he's the most interesting person, right?
Right.
And
he never won anything, right? But
I think he got one vote, but I apologized later for voting for him. I was young, right? So we were sitting there, we were talking to him, but at no point would anybody have yelled and screamed anybody down.
Yeah.
And I think now, the communists would be okay, but the Republicans or the conservatives would get screamed down.
And Isabella, you said in your article that there's some group that you were thinking about joining, but you are reticent to do it because you'll be labeled or tagged, and it's going to hurt you resume-wise. It's going to hurt you. So, I mean, that's a suppression of your, beliefs. I mean, you're supposed to be. This is where Joe is going to jump on me now because I'm going to say the D word. Every time we say democracy, we think, the government should give you a bottle of Astroglide, but
yeah, that's a whole other episode. Go ahead.
Yeah, Turning Point USA, it's a lot of young conservatives, and, some libertarians often join the group too. And we have a chapter on our campus, and there's a good amount of kids in there. I was quite surprised, male and female.
Yeah.
Good sized group, but from what I've heard, even from people who aren't into politics, they're like, those kids get labeled, the professors come after them. If they find out you're part of this, you will get called out all the time. You're basically getting harassed at that point.
Gotcha.
And, before anybody that's listening is going, well, you got to stand up for yourself. I agree with you. But sometimes you're in your college, try to get an education.
Well, and set yourself up for life, for success in life, actually.
Yeah, I mean, there's time and place for everything, and I think when you get older, I mean, me and Robert, we can fight the good fight a little bit more.
Yeah.
But no, I agree with you. I think it's interesting about that is, I think that, and this is why we need you to keep writing, and you'll be back on the show and everything, is people need to understand this is happening. This isn't make believe. This is real deal stuff, Yeah. There was the things when it first started happening where conservatives were showing up and people were going crazy. Anybody that believed in anything intellectual should have been upset. And I'm questioning that.
Yeah.
I don't think they are intellectual, and I don't think they belong to democracy, and I don't think they believe in open thought.
Well, we're steps away from burning books, I believe.
We're burning books. It's called censorship on the YouTube.
That is true. You're exactly right. You're exactly right.
In our books every week.
Right. Because we try not to say the Nazi word or the commun or Germany or whatever, but we're not there yet, but we are sure getting closer by not baby steps, by bigger steps, because we are being censored. Even if you don't agree with a liberal, I still want to hear what they say because they might have something smart to tell me. Okay. But when they start yelling over what I'm trying to tell them, then, you lose. Then it's just a monologue. It's not a dialogue. So,
and here's we had the Secretary of State of Alabama on, and he was wonderful. John was.
Oh man, he was great. Yeah.
Absolutely uncontroversial. Just talking about what they're doing to help voters, to be fair.
Yeah.
We got nicked in the butt. Nipped in the butt right from the beginning, buddy.
Yeah.
We couldn't get any support to promote that. We were rejected by.
So it's too controversial because it's too conservative, I think. And it was because we named it. What we name it, Joe? Voter integrity.
Voter integrity, which is apparently an awful thing. It's a very awful thing to have voter integrity.
Yeah.
Very controversial.
Very controversial.
You want voter integrity.
No.
Probably a horrible person. That's what we're fighting. But here's the kind of scary part about it is, and this is why it's good to have this, because if one person says it, or in this case, me and Robert are one entity, Two Average Joes, and they go, oh, they're just blaming it on that. But when you have other people going, it's happening on colleges.
Yeah.
We have people telling us that, they can't get any traction on doing anything, and sharing their ideas. Then it lets you know that that's real. So that is crazy. But let me ask you this one last thing, because you got a couple more years in school. How fast do you think this? Because I'm not going to ask you, do you think it's going to get worse? Because we already know the answer. They're having to waste time. How fast do you think it's going to go in the next 2 years? If you were going to pick worst case scenario, what could you see?
I really think it all depends on how many people can become aware of what's going on, because I don't think some of these kids really do see that all the Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, just the news in general, they're all pushing the same agenda.
Right.
And I don't think they realize that, because for most of them, that's what they want to hear.
Yes.
And for people like me, I can, pick it apart and realize, like, hey, this isn't even what happened.
Right.
I think a good example of that was apparently on the border, there was some man on a horse and he was whipping people that were crossing the border. Turns out that whole thing wasn't even true.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And people believed it. They didn't question it. They said, oh, I saw it on Instagram. Oh, I saw it on the news. This happened.
Right.
And then when they found out that didn't happen, like it finally, made its way around.
Right.
That woke up a lot of people. Woke up a couple of my friends. They're like, oh my God, this is getting really bad. And I'm like, dude, it's been bad.
Yeah, it's been bad. The whole Joe Rogan thing was the same way, where all of a sudden, Joe Rogan, by the way, is not a conservative.
No, he's not a conservative at all. But, well, maybe a little.
I heard somebody one time trying to make it sound like he was a conservative, and it's just because you don't listen to his show.
Yeah.
He's not a conservative. And when he realized that they were lying to him about the medicine he was taking.
Yeah.
Okay. And that supposedly, he was out there taking horse medicine and all that stuff. He said, this is prescribed to me from a doctor.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, even he woke up to perhaps you might have wanted to pay some attention.
He had the CNN guy grouped on there, whatever the hell the doctor's name is. He brutalized him about seeing him lying about that.
Yeah.
That he was taking horse tranquilizers or whatever the hell it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, does that hit the campus at all? The Joe Rogan stuff, or?
Oh yeah, people talk about Joe Rogan all the time. He's kind of been memed amongst the internet. He's kind of a joke. But if you actually sit down and listen to him, it's not that bad. I've took the time to listen to him. He has a lot of amazing points.
No doubt about that.
Most time he knows what he's talking about. Sometimes
he's an intelligent guy for being an MMA guy, and
exactly.
By the way, I would let everybody make fun of me if I was making the money.
$50 million gives you
me to death. Just bam.
Right.
I notified Spotify and let them know we do it for a tenth of money.
There we go.